What it means is it's a couple, and you each have the balls, and you go to the best shot. And
Oh,
you can-
okay.
So
Oh, okay.
this will be our third year, so he's wanted to do it, so I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes people
Oh
are a
my
little
gosh.
reluctant to put their neck out.
Oh,
Even if I
yeah.
needed a wheelchair to get
Oh,
around.
we just have a blast. He's leading the nest in August. He's taking, Chandler's Crossing in East Lansing with Adam Barton and Jacob Clausen.
Okay.
They're splitting, 3 bedrooms.
That's good feedback.
You know, and he's supposed to be LCC, but I think it's his first year. Adam's a full-time student, and the Tomasik kid's a barber. He's been to barber school, so he had barbers over in East Lansing. So I was like, ever since being in Sarah, 1 week mom, 1 week dad, 1 week mom, so. But he's at our place every Sunday night. He said, Grandma, don't worry, I'll still be there.
I just don't want a pallet, I'm like, and somebody's here, we can unload it, you know, but it's still goes in. Oh, it's fine, I'm gonna feel terrible, but it's like 3 times the load.
Jeff, I'm in Florida.
Yeah, it was.
But I don't want to take advantage of it.
We had a blast. 5 days down there. And I accidentally, no, it wasn't an accident. Left my phone home, last vacation.
Oh, God.
I didn't know.
I had my church tablet, so I had my email, but we left at 5 in the morning. And my husband was on it, and I got out, it slid out of my pocket into the seat, and I was 5 minutes from the airport. And I was like, where's my phone? And I mean, I panicked. And then I thought, this might be okay. Not having it ding and ring.
Well, good.
I'm so old school with this stuff.
Oh, I know.
I like the paper. I mean, shoot, I always loved the paper. Were you that busy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, good.
Not for myself.
Hey, you probably, were you going to interview in Grand Rapids now for a superintendent job? Oh, okay.
No, are there anybody, all that wants in the audience feedback forms? Did you grab them? Okay, we do a separate one for each candidate, and I will collect them at the end of each interview and make copies for the board. So, just want to make sure everybody had an opportunity to grab them.
I just think that when we ask them questions, make sure you turn your mic on so that people who are viewing it can ask the questions.
Just gonna say, I was gonna ask the question, you push it,
Hold it down and the microphone comes to you. There you go.
turn green sign,
Now it's on.
I'm just gonna leave the sign.
It is. No, it's not.
Yeah, it is, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, testing.
Since I'm in the audience, I'll go down, I'm gonna go down and take the first one if you want to start the proceeding.
Yes. All right, call this meeting to order. Stand up for the pledge of allegiance. not have any public communication that has come in, written or, Ovid-Elsie personnel. So we're just waiting for our first minute.
Did Dan tell anybody where it would be? 'Cause I can't.
I think usually.
We're live.
Oh, we are?
Wait, yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you, Becky.
Started 6 months ago. So maybe preset.
Well, I know Mark already shared it with you, but welcome, community members. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for the first round interviews of the Ovid-Elsie Area School Superintendent Search. Please note that members of the audience who wish to provide feedback may complete an interview feedback form following each interview. The forms are on the table by the door, and after completion, they will be copied and distributed to all board members.
I know. We both had the same reaction.
We have our first contestant, our first interviewer, Mark Cassis.
Steve Custis.
I'm sorry, Mark. Sorry, we were talking about Mark.
Hi, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you.
Our farmers aren't so happy.
What's that?
Our farmers aren't so happy. Well, thank you so much. Welcome. Glad you're here with us today. All of the board members are going to take turns asking questions. So I will start. My name is Brooke Woolley. I'm the board president. We've had the opportunity to review your resume. Please tell us how your background and experience make you a good fit to be our next superintendent. How will you demonstrate that the success of students is a priority?
So, thank you so much, first of all, for the opportunity. A little bit about me and who I am. My name is Steve Custis. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a learner. I have a lovely wife who's also an educator, and I have two young men. They're teenagers. Connor and Cameron, one is 12 and the other is 14. To give you a little bit about my background and who I am, I've spent the last 26 years in education. I've served in a variety of roles. I started really as a latchkey teacher while I was in college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. But I've been a high school English teacher. I've been a high school assistant principal, moved to high school director. I've been Director of Curriculum Instruction, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and my current role is I'm the Executive Director of Grants and Academic Innovation. So all of my roles really have kids at the heart of them. In terms of education, I think I said earlier, I'm a learner. I have my Bachelor's of Science from Eastern Michigan University, and that's where I earned my teaching certificate. My Master's in the Art of Teaching from Mary Grove College. I then got my specialist at Michigan State, and last year I received my doctorate from Michigan State University. Go green?
Go white.
All right, had to make sure I had some stories in the crowd. Throughout my career, I've had the honor of really leading some pretty innovative initiatives for kids. I think that you'll find, and hopefully I'll be able to share with you throughout the interview, that everything I do, kids are at the center of my decision-making and the leadership that I provide. And I'm really excited based on just doing some research like over the weekend and coming out and spending a little bit of time here that hopefully if I'm chosen to be your superintendent, that I can bring some of that energy and some of those experiences here to the community.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Vice President Sukin.
Okay, thank you. What practices and procedures would you use to develop trust and confidence with your board and keep them informed?
So, in my opinion, in my experience, culture trumps strategy every single time. So, I can attribute all of my successes throughout my career that always start with building trusting relationships. So before, or in the early stages, if I were to become superintendent, I want to meet with each one of you individually, kind of understand your compelling why, get to know you, get to know your family, and really try to figure out what your communication preferences are. I think there are 1,000 different ways to communicate, both electronically, digitally, and then we could come up with a communication strategy together that makes the most sense. So I would envision, day-to-day operations like a weekly email update. I would envision an emergency communication plan, so that might be a quick text and sometimes it's a personal phone call, just depending on what the situation is. But I feel like that's something that we as a team have to develop together, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I know that trust takes time. It's not something that's built overnight. So just because you come into a community or you get a role, like we don't automatically receive, oh, I have 100% confidence in you. I know that takes relationship building, and that the only way to do that is to spend time with one another and follow through. I feel like I've made a career out of following through and delivering. And when I haven't been able to deliver, I've always communicated to my boards, my colleagues, my teachers, or my students the reason why I wasn't able to deliver, and then usually I come back with something even better or maybe some sort of change to it. I'll give you an example of follow through. So my board earlier this year at Stockbridge, we have a reading intervention called Beyond Basics. They were wondering what's the data look like? How do we know that this is working or not? Because it's a partnership with an outside organization that comes in and provides one-to-one meeting to the room. So I heard this requested at a board meeting. 2 weeks later when I come back, I needed access to some software to be able to crunch the numbers so that way I could extrapolate like those individual kids that were in that intervention that I didn't quite have yet. So I let them know at that board meeting, and the next board meeting I delivered. So that's really a real life example of my board asking me for something. I wanted to deliver, but I couldn't deliver when I said I would, but then I followed through and made sure that they got it. But I just need to make sure I communicated next time I saw them. I wasn't able to get it. Here's the challenge, and this is how I made sure they get the information that they needed.
Hi there.
Hi.
How will you introduce yourself to the Ovid-Elsie community and maintain engagement with the stakeholders?
So when I think about starting this role as superintendent, I think about it as joining the community. So it's not just starting a new job. I mean, my wife knows, like, this is my second home. That's just kind of how being a school administrator works. I think my first priority would be to listen and learn, and that means showing up to a Rotary meeting or have some formalized structures in place where meet with staff and parents and, you know, students here at the high school if they're interested in talking to an older guy about teaching and learning and what they're hoping for in terms of school. But really it's a lot of listening and learning and a lot of storytelling. I think that storytelling is powerful. I want them to get to know me and know my story, and I want to get to know them and their story too. And then following up and having those touch points. So if I'm in a classroom or if I hear from a teacher, oh, I really started this training, or I heard that you were really, some really interesting work with Rick Gillingham or structured literacy, can can we connect on that? So, and then just making sure that, again, that I'm following up and following through. So it's not just a one time, I got to meet you, shake your hand, thank you, and then move on. Like, that's not how relationships work. I think that there's a second part to this too, where just figuring out part of that communication plan with social media and, posting all the great things that are happening in the school district, or just sharing. And I think everybody's either on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the only two I really leverage right now, because you can't be all things to all people. Social media, you can't respond to them all. So that's another challenge. But I'm going to be visible at your sporting events, your at local community events. That's just how it works when you're a superintendent.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Sometimes we are in situations where our role is less about being the one to come up with the creative ideas and more about facilitating the creative process or helping others get their ideas implemented. Describe a time when you played the role, this type of role. What did you do to facilitate the process, and what were the results?
So early in my career, I had sort of once in career opportunity. I was at Picking Community High School as the high school assistant principal, and my superintendent came to me and had a conversation and tapped me and said, I'd like you to explore this opportunity to build a new tech high school. New tech high school at this point in time, so this is like 2009, before one-to-one computing was really a thing. It was small school model where you had about 400 students per high school, and Picking Community High School, 1,630 kids. So it was like being the mayor of a small city in some ways. So we wanted to take that large high school experience and make it smaller, so that way we could really build relationships with kids. And there were some design principles, project-based learning, one-to-one computing, and early college experience for all kids. And in my house, all means all. So even kids that may have struggled academically, they could become participants in the program. So this wasn't a cream skim. We would be doing projects, and we'd have our valedictorian sitting with our antagonist, who was a C student that could hear less, sitting with a child with a cognitive impairment, all working on a real world project together. It was beautiful, it was amazing. To get there, the process was, here are our design principles. I found a great team of teachers, and we really figured it out together. One of the design principles was integrated classrooms, or integrated courses. So instead of having English 9 and American history, we called the class American Studies, and we integrated the projects together. So projects included both subject areas. Because when you work outside of school, we don't live in a world of siloed coursework. We live in a world where everything is integrated. So I got some training in something called Critical Friends Group, and really it was good facilitation practices. So when we decided as a team that these were the courses that we wanted to integrate, because we're talking about kids' master schedules, NCAA, all of the things that are required to build a really high-quality educational program. One teacher would present an idea, and we would go around the circle, so the 10 of us would say, I like this, I wonder, and the next step might be, and then the teacher had all of that information to sort of take back if it was a project, and when it came to coursework, we basically were the tuning protocol, we tuned almost every decision that we made. At the end of the day, I was responsible for the success of the program, but they're the ones that were actually owning it because they're the ones that were making the decision. So they had 10 critical friends or 10 thought partners to make really great curricular and academic decisions. And it was amazing. Like it is an amazing experience for children. Just so you know, I've used that critical friendship protocol and other things. Like I've conducted in my last 3 roles, like in teacher orientation, and I use a lot of those protocol for facilitation of those kinds of meetings and events too. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the outcomes, but when we succeed, the team gets the credit, and when we fall short, I take responsibility. That's just how leadership works in my world.
Considering your past accomplishments, what are some of the reasons for your success? How have you overcome the difficulties you may have encountered?
So I kind of take this question and put it into really 3 buckets. I think there are 3 reasons. First of all, I listen, and I really listen. I'm not trying to come up with an answer or what I need to say next. I'm really trying to understand what people are trying to communicate. I'm willing to seek out creative solutions to problems. The solution I think that I might have when we start may not be where we end up. And then last, I think it's just my work ethic. I think that that's something that is difficult to teach, but you have to have if you want to accomplish like really great things for kids, and especially something that you would consider a success. So let me give you a recent example. When I first came on board to Stockbridge, the community is small, rural, it's very, very familiar. In fact, I think we have about 120 fewer children than we have here in Ovid-Elsie. We are designated by the federal government as medically underserved in both primary care and mental health care. About 8 years ago, the last primary care provider pulled out of town, and the faith community kind of all got together and rallied around and had this grassroots effort to figure out how are we going to bring healthcare back to Stockbridge. So I came on board, worked on the federal grant. We were able to secure it. So we have $2.5 million to build a building on school property. The school district had me, and we also had the property. So to make the project go, great, we were ready to go. The one challenge that we had is we didn't have a healthcare partner to operate the thing. So we were looking at FQHC, and for those that know, medical systems, federally qualified health centers. So we wanted to make sure that it was sustainable. We didn't want somebody to pull out in 3 years, and then we're stuck in the same challenge that we were already in. So we had tapped probably 7 or 8 different FQHCs trying to get them to come partner with us. I offered to write additional grants and other things to try to help sort of incentivize them to come to Stockbridge. And we were coming up short every single time. So I joined a nonprofit called 5 Healthy Towns, and 5 Healthy Towns, I'm on their board. I serve on their board of directors, and through that board service, I was able to make a connection with the CEO of Chelsea Hospital, who then connected us with a larger healthcare organization, who I won't say publicly because it's not yet finalized, or the deal isn't finalized. But it was thinking outside the box and providing that extra effort to try to find a creative solution to the problem. Now, this particular organization is it won't be an FQHC, but because of our federal designation, it will end up being a rural health clinic or a rural health center. So their reimbursement is probably better than what some FQHCs offer, what some FQHCs get. So I think it goes back to listen, try to get to what's really the root cause of the challenge or the problem. What are the key takeaways that have to happen? And maybe it's not the same play that we drew up, but at the end of the day, Stockbridge is going to have healthcare in the community for the first time in like 4 or 5 years. No, it's longer than that, like 8 years, because of willingness to go the extra mile.
How do you recruit, retain, develop, and lead a management team? Can you give us some examples of how you've done this in the past?
100%. So I'm going to keep coming back to culture and building trust. I think one of the, as a superintendent, like it's my job to model both culture of trust and culture of high expectations. I think one of the and this comes back to my dissertation work. We studied 15 principles, interviewed 15 principles from across the state, and we found that we're trying to figure out why principals are leaving schools, because retention is a challenge. And we applied a concept called moral injury. Essentially, people experience an unethical behavior by someone in a position of authority, and it injures them in a way to where they spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's happening, why, and eventually what we found is 12 out of 15 of these principals left their school districts or left education altogether. So when I think about some low-hanging fruit when it comes to recruitment, I think there's a couple of different ways that we do this. First of all, like we behave in ways that are moral and ethical at all times. What's popular is known as right, what's right is known as popular, but we do the right things because they're the right things to do. Second of all, I think there's something to do with branding. So, and I've noticed on our Facebook and social media pages here that we're celebrating our kids. So for somebody like me that has kids at the center of his decision making, and that's where my heart is, like seeing that that's what Ovid-Elsie is all about, that's attractive to a candidate like myself. And I think the same thing holds true for principals. So there are plenty of ways that folks can find or create or make up news that is or is not true. But I think that one of the ways is to definitely brand ourselves that in a way that shares our values for kids. Secondly, I think there's an opportunity to grow our own, and I've done this in other districts as well. There are opportunities for school leadership within every organization, and whether that's a coach or whether that's a teacher that's really interested in whatever it is that they want to try to bring to their classroom and to the district, I feel like there's an opportunity there. One of my friends who I did my dissertation with is the superintendent at Bath, and he shared with me a couple of weeks ago that here in Clinton County, there's an ISD initiative that's kind of a grassroots, grow your own administrators, and so each one of the superintendents and several of the principals come and they spend like an evening doing a workshop where prospective administrators are fed a nice meal and they get the inside scoop on what it's like and some activities that it takes to be an administrator. I would love to participate in that as well. Just to kind of grow our own staff. When it comes to retention, I'll come back to the acting ethically and responsibly. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. Always tell the truth. Get back to your core values of the golden rule, and make sure that everybody has a fair shake. Like we're all following the same rules, the same processes. There's not a special deal for this person that we don't offer for this person. And then I also want to say that I think it's really valuable, and this is something else that we learned as part of our research, is we need to make sure that our principals are participating in conferences and professional learning. And sometimes they have to think outside the box. If we want our principals to stay current with and most up to date with practices, they have to learn. And they also need that network, because a situation that's happening here might be happening in, Fowler, or it might be happening in Stockbridge, or it might be happening in Openness or Clio or any of the other communities. But if they're not learning together and they're not networking, then they just lost an opportunity. That's a quick phone call. Hey, we ran into each other. We were at that session on, Title IX compliance. It's not just going and learning about Title IX compliance. It's also about connecting with other principals. So when they feel like they're alone, they're not. And hopefully I can set the tone for our team too, that they can come to me when they're experiencing a challenge along the same team kids.
Welcome. Tell us what your role as superintendent is in the budget development process and how you've been involved in your past roles.
So as a superintendent, the buck stops with me. I figured question 7, when we talk about budgeting, we could come up with that joke. My role with budget development is to work with our business manager to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our school community. 80 to 85% of all of our costs are going to be human resources related, and our primary source of revenue is based on student count. After you do the quick and dirty math, there is very little extra for us to be able to add to additional wants and needs. I looked at our fund balance here, and it's really strong and it's really healthy, and you should be proud of that. In every role, so when I was in Clio, I was assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, and I was also in charge of HR, probably 25 to 30% curriculum instruction, and probably 70 to 75% human resources work there, but always looking at what are our projections. There's a couple of different software things that we can utilize. New metrics, I know we're using it for our transparency page here, but they also have a pretty decent tool that uses a few different models to look at enrollment projections. And so just trying to put a number on where we think things are. Sometimes reaching out to and not knowing the context, we've gotten pretty good at predicting, but sometimes it's reaching out to your daycare or your GSRP program to figure out how many kindergartners we're having come in, or do we have a junior kindergarten or a developmental kindergarten program, and sometimes those numbers kind of play into things as well. But staffing, your contracts, your negotiations, those all play into budget development to know how much you're going to have. And then always trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening in Lansing, whether that's reaching out to a friend of a friend, or talking to folks at MDE because there are concerns in the wind about money with title grants and those kinds of things. And from what I'm told, we feel like maybe a 10% cut to our title grants right now. I think that might be out there already, but if you haven't heard or if it's not out there, that's about what we're hearing right now. Most of the money that they get from the federal government at the state level, they kind of have it to be pushed over towards the next year. So, probably give too much detail, that leads a little bit too much with budget development, but we're really deep in the thick of things right now. I have about 30 FTE in Stockbridge that are some kind of grant pays for them. And so like, I keep a really close eye on those things. I will share that this year's budget is not where we predicted it to be, and I don't know if anybody got it right, but we were lucky and were able to leverage some attrition, and I'm assuming that we would do the same thing here. Somebody retires or takes a job elsewhere, and maybe have to replace or not have to replace, so that we would not be facing a huge, budget shortfall, and that's how you keep your fund balance. So yeah, I've done a thing or two with lots of budgets and development.
Thank you. Tell us how your previous professional experiences have influenced you as a leader.
So this question, I went deep when I started reflecting on it and started thinking about it. As a recovering high school English teacher, I learned back then that participating in extracurricular activities, whether it was coaching basketball or football or building the sets for the plays, you get to see kids in a non-academic setting where they're not being judged. They might be judged in a different way, but you really get to see them. And I think every kid wants to truly be seen. And I also always felt like I need another 2 weeks. Like, oh, I need to teach you this one last day. They weren't having it, but I felt like I needed to do like 2 more things so that we would be ready for the next grade level. So it just taught me work ethic and planning. When I was a building administrator at community schools, we got to build a school of the future for our kids. And I got to help build the kind of school that I would want to teach in and that I would want my, at the time, hypothetical children would have been able to go to. We made mistakes together, we learned together, we learned that it's okay to make mistakes if you're trying to be innovative. Sometimes, there's going to be some sharp edges that you might not necessarily anticipate. It's okay as long as we learn and we don't make that mistake again. When I was at Clio, we created an early college for students in primary schools. I was thinking about 3,000 kids, or about 1,000-ish kids in our high school. We were the first one-to-one technology school district in Genesee County. I took some of those design principles from campaign and leveraged those in Clio. We changed how we taught children to read, because we knew that there were some kids that were falling through the cracks who had dyslexia, or maybe not had dyslexia, but had some symptoms that were dyslexic. And in my house, I just feel like being able to read, like, that's freedom. And I don't care if you want to farm, I don't care if you want to be a physician or an attorney or an accountant. I feel like at the end of the day, that your ability to read is nothing more than giving yourself opportunity. And if the system isn't designed in your favor, no fault of anyone, it was just kind of the way things rolled out historically, then when we know better, we have to do better. You can't unknow something. I think I learned at Okemos, it taught me the value of listening to staff and students when they're in crisis, and making sure that we have written policies and procedures in place and that are available to everyone, so that way your systems aren't person-dependent systems or people-dependent systems. You actually have a written down system for people to follow. Stockbridge taught me that anything's possible if you have a vision and you have motivation, and small people motivated people. So whether it was building our hoop house, where our FFA kids are providing fresh vegetables for our school lunch program and earning money while they're doing that at the same time for the program, or whether it's the health center or changing how we teach reading. Really anything is possible if everyone is committed and everybody's working together. So at the end of the day, I'm just here for kids, and I'll do whatever I can to help support whatever our folks need.
Okay, Please tell us about a time when you have evaluated and adjusted your communication style to ensure stakeholders feel well-informed and engaged.
So I'm going to go to my assistant superintendent of human resources at Oklahoma Public Schools. My first year here, we hired quite a few administrators. Early on, I had to hire a new athletic director, and I had to put a process in place that we made sure that all stakeholders had a voice. So we posted the role, and then we went through a process where we screened, just via Zoom, like 16 applicants to get down to 4. We brought those 4 applicants in, and we had a committee where we had a group of teachers, a group of coaches, a group of students, and a group of parents, and they kind of went through that process, and at the end of the interview, we used the Google form, and they just collected all this data. The final step was an interview with the administration team, because ultimately the superintendent's the one that makes the recommendation to the board. And so we took all of that data, and the superintendent, our administrative team, we looked at it all, and we did a fantastic hire. Replicated that same process for an elementary principal like 5 months later, and I got a phone call after the posting had gone out and everything. We're in process, and we're getting ready to do the screener, and teachers were asking questions. Why are we going to have children in the interview? Why are we going to? I made the mistake of trying to lead from my computer and not being in the building to talk to teachers. Their principal had retired the year before. We had their principal exit mid-year. We had an interim principal. I needed to be in the building. I should have known better, but I thought the process was so great for the AD position that we were going to replicate it. That's not what that group of teachers needed. So I spent a lot of time in person meeting with teacher leaders and staff meeting, just going over the process, going over the why. And even though it was the same process, the way that I had to communicate it, I couldn't just facilitate it through the building principals and those individuals and some emails. I had to be there. So I just learned that you can't lead from a computer.
Please share an example of a time you had led a sustained multi-year improvement initiative. Be specific regarding the situation, the task at hand, your specific role in the outcome.
Sure. So at Stockbridge, and I know I'm getting short on time, so I'll try to speak more quickly. So in Stockbridge, I work on grants, but I also do a lot of curriculum instructional work. Literacy is in my wheelhouse. We've broken our school improvement into 4 different K through 12 teams, and one of our school improvement initiatives is literacy, and that's what I lead. When I first got to Stockbridge, I talked to a lot of my teachers about the kind of professional development they were doing, and it was kind of scattered. Like there were lots of little, we called them rafts, where the great work was happening, but it was happening over here and over here and over here, but it wasn't really systemic. So we kind of had the haves and the have-nots, and we didn't want to play, I got lucky. I got the classroom lottery where the teacher had the training, was implementing it, and the teachers were telling me it was really hard because they're planning as a grade level team, and they're the one person with the training, and they don't want to be off camber with what everybody else is doing. So met with them. I had all this data in my head. Yes, please continue to go seek out the training. A grant came through MDE. It was called 35J, and with that grant, I was able to pay for the training of all my teachers. Before I put the plan together and applied for the grant, I met with teachers after school, and I said, if I pay you for your time, will you attend the 6 days of training and then implement it in the fall? But everybody has to be on board pre-K through 5 because that's the rules. Those are the rules of the grant. I got a resounding thumbs up, yes, but Steve, it has to be on our time. Like, we can't just take 6 days out of the classroom, or I can't do it after school. I found an organization that not only gives that training, but also gives teachers materials to use in their classrooms too. And they do it sort of as they need it. So they could have done it in Howell in person for a week over the summer. It's 5 days, not 6, I apologize. They could have done it on Saturdays. They could have done it, if they needed me to, I would have gotten a sub, like obviously we're already injured the workday, but we're able to find a way to get everyone trained. And so, so now everybody's had the training and they're implementing. And if we have turnover, somebody moves, it happens or retires, we still have the training where we're able to provide that to teachers so that way they don't feel like they've missed out or they're left behind, and so we can sustain this. Without getting into too much detail and giving you more information than what my board in Stockbridge has, like our early results are super impressive. It's better than where we thought it was going to be based on our spring screener. And all that data's not in yet, but it's exciting. So yeah. That's-
Please tell us about your experience with labor negotiations and human resource management.
Sure. So I've negotiated contracts for over 10 years. That was part of my responsibility in Clio, and then obviously in Oklahoma that was. I understand PIRA, I understand policies and procedures associated with contract negotiations. I understand getting approval from the board before you go into negotiations so you know what you have to work with. I think the highlight of my negotiations career was when our bus driver's lead negotiator came to a board meeting and publicly thanked me because he felt like they were heard, and that was exciting. It never happened, and my super in openness with Steve, like it's never happened. I know FMLA, I know tenure law, I know payroll, I know hiring, I know exiting, I know retirement. I've done quite a few things in human resources over my career, from both the building and central office role, so I feel pretty confident. I think there's a way to do things where everyone feels respected and they feel like there's dignity as well. So even when you have to have previous conversations around human resources, I think you still have to do it, like recognizing that there's a human side of human resources. That makes sense.
Please describe how you have engaged and supported staff members in a way that is meaningful to them. How do you know they felt supported?
So I'm going to talk about our peer pros. They were really struggling with some unexpected behaviors, especially in our younger grades. I don't know if that happens here, but it's happened in the last 5 districts I worked in. One of the challenges was the union president came to me and said, hey, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and I asked, hey, what kind of training have you had? And we hadn't had a ton. So I took all of the data and everything what would you like training on, and she gave me a laundry list. And we just had to have a brand new special ed director who's done a lot of peer training in her last district, and had a handbook and lots of amazing structured tools to help support with. And I gave her the laundry list and asked her if she could help support with this. And either she conducted trainings or she found somebody from our ISD to come in and support our peers with training. And the thank you from her for following through and making that happen. It was a tearful moment, and it was just that's what we're supposed to do. Tell me what you need, and we'll try to figure it out. So.
Please tell us about a time when your performance did not meet your expectations. What did you learn from it, and how you applied those lessons?
So I would say I'm a learner, and I'll probably watch this movie later today and probably apply figuring out what I should have said or how I should have said something. Earlier this year, electrical services needed to be provided for our electric buses. So we didn't have our charging stations hooked up to a new transformer like Consumers is bringing to us. I sent out an RFP, a request for a proposal to seek bids because I thought it was going to be over the bid threshold, which it was. And because our grant is federally funded, it needed to have, I need to ensure that that the vendors were using prevailing wages because it's part of the federal rules, and I did not. And so I called timeout, I called all the vendors that submitted, and I apologized profusely and begged them to resubmit, but make sure they included prevailing wages. And I resubmitted the whole process, or started the whole process over, made sure I had clarity on it, and we ended up getting a great bid, and everybody was happy because everybody understood the rules. I made an assumption that I never should have, that they understood that it was when I put it in, meets all the federal grant guidelines. I just needed to spell it out for them. That wasn't fair to the vendors, and I own that. So later this year, I sent out an RFP for the bus camera system for all of our buses because our old system was kind of ancient and not working. And I had 3 people look over the RFP before it went out to proofread it. So I learned that it's most important to get things right, not get them right away. So we can always push a timeline. Like it doesn't. It's most important to make sure that we're communicating clearly and putting our best foot forward as a district, especially when you've got vendors coming in and seeking business.
Please tell us about a challenge you experienced in bringing a group with varying perspectives to a consensus on a difficult issue. How did you lead, communicate, and what was the final outcome?
So I'll stay with the electric bus grant. So this was a big change. There was a lot of misinformation on the internet, and when I applied for the grant, we didn't know we were going to get it. I mean, it was kind of like, okay, like who's really going to give you like, it's about $400,000 a bus and charger to install these. No one would buy a brand new bus. They're about $150,000 a piece now for a gasoline bus, right? So, so there's a whole lot of confusion and emotion at the time. And so, but this is going to be a huge financial savings for the district because these buses, A, are free, and B, they operate about 45 cents a mile, where our gas buses are about 90 cents a mile. So like the long-term savings for the district is huge, and the kids, especially our kids with autism, get to ride on a very quiet bus, so they're less energized and stimulated when they actually get to school. So I did 2 things that made a really big difference. The first thing is I rounded up all my drivers, and I used the protocol, asked them what their hopes and fears were for this initiative. I used all their fears to generate a Q&A, and then I went and found and researched all of the answers to all the questions or challenges or fears that they had shared. I shared it with them, I put it on the website, and I kept those 2 giant pieces of chart paper in the transportation director's office, so that way, if they thought of something, I would check it once a day, and then I would come back, and if there was a new question up there, I would answer it. The second thing is I got the vendor to bring a bus out, let our drivers test drive it, to see how it drives and get a feel for it. And they came out to our football game on a Friday night, and we had kind of a Q&A for community members to kick the tires, and they did, literally. But they had an opportunity to see it, hear it. I mean, school buses are school buses, but there was so much in the news. Electric is good, electric is bad, electric is good again. They just needed really solid information, and they got it. At the end of the day, the board moved forward to go forward and purchase those buses. So that's the process we used. Right.
All right, so as we wind down our time together, would you like to ask us any questions or leave us with any closing remarks?
So I have one question, and it's for each of you. If you could describe Ovid-Elsie schools with just one word, what would your one word be?
would say community.
You can have the same word too. You know.
Community.
It's not-
Family.
Innovative.
I'm writing on the shirt tails of other board members, but I'm gonna switch it just a little bit. Hometown. We are really together.
I'd say caring.
And I'll go with the C theme and I'll say collaborative.
Thank you for that. I think that's some of the best data that a candidate could get from a board. So I just want to, again, thank you for your time. This is a great place, a great opportunity. On Friday, I was here. I'm Catholic, so it's a Holy Family, lit a candle, and said, okay, it's your plan. And people waved to me when I was driving, and I thought, okay, this is, I love this place. I really got such a great feeling for the folks here, and I think what you're describing, it just really hits home. I can assure you, if you hire me to be your next superintendent, that I'm going to take care of your kids. They're going to be safe, they're going to learn, and they're going to have great opportunities. And I just really appreciate your time, and thanks for the conversation tonight.
Well, we appreciate your interest in our superintendent position. The board is interviewing a number of candidates tonight and tomorrow, and we will contact you if you are selected as a finalist. We truly thank you for coming, and we enjoy meeting with you.
Thank you.
So if you have feedback forms, you want to make sure you put the candidate's name on there and fill them out. I'll collect them in a few minutes. Yep, you have about 10 minutes here, and just remind you, there's some snacks back there, and I will be back shortly. I'll walk the candidate out, and we'll talk to the other one and bring them in.
See, I'm on the computer right now, one word.
Give me a choice. Give me a choice. That's cool, I like that.
I bought an auction, I was looking, it goes up in your desk.
So when you said, it's not really gonna.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
Trying. If someone throws my way, I'm trying to make it stick, so.
said, what he said. MCL.
Those always take a lot.
But I'm trying to clean it, I just don't need something to
He was old. He couldn't. I told him, say, you want sweet? You get that, you go that side, you get salt.
No, everything's good. Just, I can see.
Any feedback?
Oh, thank goodness.
I walked in the house and I was, okay. What we doing?
Are you still ready?
Yeah. All right.
And then we can take copies later. No, no, later.
That's what next one. And,
Time to get back, I think everybody.
Yes, I think we said 6:56, we said 10 minutes, so.
There.
that helps.
Oh,
So see, and English teacher here, you make it right. And it right cursive, so.
well, it's gonna be a couple more minutes.
Wow. We got our live stream today, so we got one of the things off the list. Good. Yeah, the pump. So I told them about my new pump.
Oh, you do?
After, for my fertilizer.
Right.
So we're not yesterday, started on the rig. I had sulfur, not here. Last summer. He didn't work on it. One day. So I was like, bigger stick than I do. Yeah, I'll do the same thing I do my work. So we called him this morning, he's like, I'll do that Saturday. So I heard him that first, we go down. I pull it, we get cold. Hold.
Oh, no.
Oh, you got, this one's got on-off switch.
No, that's,
Hold on, I got
and I
it.
think they hide them every time they make a new decision. Yeah.
I'm so afraid of fall, I've used it one time, I can't get it started.
Sorry.
I just think everybody's having their moments.
Did you write that? Did you write that?
She signed it at the bottom.
Yeah, read it. It's worth writing. It's worth writing.
Yeah, I'm writing like a doctor, isn't that how you write?
No, I've read it.
No, I type.
I type, so do I.
Yeah, so sorry, I've been typing since ninth grade. You know, I learned cursive many, many years ago, so. Yeah, so my neighbor, for keywords, introduced me to them. And I was like, what are these tasty nowadays? Oh, yeah, I mean, there's. Not really. I mean. No. But it was very fun. Like yeah, some people. You just want me to type that for you? Yeah. Do you want me to? Yeah, that's not sure. So, I write when I'm I can read it. I even tell my kids. I say, if you tell me you can't read it, I don't understand. Because I've been typing since ninth grade. So. Oh, yeah, my feedback. Well, I just need to cut it back. Oh, I think I should look.
Okay, you know.
I was listening when they did that here.
Yeah. I don't, and then before that, I mean, that was a pretty tough one, yeah, 2.5 or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, and it's easy. Well, I might not do it. Yeah, right. Well, I might not have told you, but I mean, we were a combination of a few different things. We finally got some tile working, we had to through my yard. So we got that to and that's something, and it can be the wettest now, but we got a tile first. But what I did is we all went on it, and did have to we chiseled it right behind us. It's been working so far, so good.
then you have to show in your things that you have to go there. You have to.
Yeah. Well, now, you went to lunch today, what do you think? That's work. We had that interest rate. I went down there Sunday, and the tops of the fishes were great. I see the fish. We got
All right, we're gonna come back from our recess.
Okay, we have our second candidate. This is Andrea Redmond from Leslie Schools here with us this evening.
Nice to meet you. I do have everything I wanted to do with you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Hi, great, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. We're each going to take turns asking you questions. My name is Brooke Woolley. I'm the board president. I'm going to go first. We've had the opportunity to review your resume. Please tell us how your background and experience make you a good fit to be our next superintendent. How will you demonstrate that the success of students is a priority?
Well, I will start. I have been in the same district for 23 years. I have held a plethora of positions within that district. I probably will forget some of the things that I've done and some of the things I currently do. But I started out as, I spent several years teaching at the elementary, right on kindergarten level, kindergarten, first grade. Loved that position. Had the experience to move up. It was a grant-funded position for 5 or 6 years, and I'm sorry I'm getting the years a little mixed up on that there. I was our MTSS district coordinator. When MTSS became a big push within the state, established the processes and procedures within our district, worked on interventions that would work K-12, implemented that along with tier 1, 2, and 3 instruction, worked on the fidelity of those interventions and pushing for data-days and watching our schools grow in that area there. Even though I don't still hold that position, because the grant had ran out. No one does. The processes that are in place keep it continuing to run. See, after that, I went back. I taught at the middle school, so secondary, taught there. Then became the principal at the middle school, and has spent the last 4 years as the high school principal and the district curriculum director. Trying to think if there was anything else. I work very closely with a lot of our grants and our budget for the district, in all of our curriculum implementations. I think I'd be a good fit, just from my background experience. I don't ever forget where I came from, and my big push is everyone is important. If you were to come to my district, and I would love you to, you would hear that from my now teaching staff, kitchen staff, bus drivers. I make sure everyone knows they're important. Visit with them, talk with them, get to know them. And, I guess I lose track here as I get one here and the other thing. So, back up just a little bit as I manage my time here. I was born and raised in St. John's. My great-grandmother, actually, funny story, spent several years in the nursing home here in Ovid. We would come out once a week to visit her. Born and raised in St. John's. Very familiar with the area, never spent a ton of time out here, but familiar with that Clinton County and what there is to offer out here. Obviously, I'm assuming we still are, but Ovid-Elsie was our big rival, obviously, growing up, so. I think that covers it.
Great, thank you. Our next question will be asked by Vice President Kevin.
Okay, what practices and procedures would you use to develop trust and confidence with your board and keep them informed?
Well, I think that's very important. One of the things would be first understanding how you would like me to communicate with you as a board. I know there's differences in boards. I'm more than welcome to, and happy to meet and talk with each one. If there's a protocol for going through a certain chain, absolutely, that I would be, have to oblige by. I think consistent communication. Regularly, I do a Friday update. Each of our buildings does a Friday update. It's brief, along with an update for you on things going on within the district, just something brief to go out to you once a week, just with some of the snippets things that are happening, great things, maybe things to be aware of. I think being transparent is super important. I'm not quite sure I've dug into some of the things, what committees you have. I'd like to explore some ideas for some committees, especially to continue to maintain financial stability in the district, and so that we have a venue to have those conversations.
How will you introduce yourself to the Ovid-Elsie community and maintain engagement with these stakeholders?
Well, a couple things. Being visible, being available, and being approachable. I used to wanting to know to get everyone's, or getting to know everyone's name, remembering names, meeting people. Not going to do that unless you're visible and you're out there. As many school functions as I can attend to, from athletics to musicals to other functions that may happen. I'm assuming the elementaries have different types of evenings that go on where the parents are there. Being in the community, getting to know the businesses, the community leaders, obviously staff members here, that's important to me, having conversations with each of them. I mean, if you were to select me, I know that the LC Dairy Days are going to come in July. That's going to be a great opportunity to get to know people. Just being visible. I am a very approachable person and want to get to know people, know their name, try to remember it.
Hi there. Sometimes we are in situations where our role is less about being the one to come up with the creative ideas and more about facilitating the creative process or helping others get their ideas implemented. Describe a time when you played this type of role. What did you do to facilitate the process, and what were the results?
Another great question. I'm a very collaborative, I see everything as a team. I'm fine to make an ultimate decision, and I will make an ultimate decision, but collaboration and getting buy-in, especially when you're going to make any change, is definitely going to help the process to run smoother. When I thought about this question, I thought back to, we battled for years back and forth on a cell phone policy. What to do with cell phones, how to reduce that distraction in the classroom. Gone from completely banning them, then I have teachers that are, it's okay this time, not so much this time. Right, I'll back you, you're going to implement it, but I can't. Kind of gone haywire on the side, and I see the distractions in it. So I recently read a book earlier this year. It's called The Anxious Generation. I read that, and I know with my staff, there's a way to bring them along, to cultivate them, and some of my best results come when they have buy-in or are part of the, that's a great idea. So I talked to them about it at a staff meeting after reading it, brought them some of the data that was in there, how these social media is affecting kids, how it's affecting their mental health, how it wasn't necessarily from COVID that things are on the downward trend, that it was way before that. And I had teachers saying, wow. The next day, they were asking me for the book. I purchased the book for every teacher that wanted it. I think I ended up with 15 teachers wanting it. They initiated their own book study that I joined them. They invited me to join them. They were using their duty-free lunch conversations about this book. We are in the process of building, because you can't just rush into anything. If I did, it's not going to work, right? You can't just say this is going to happen tomorrow. So we're working to build a policy for next year with buy-in from staff. We've been talking with some of the students, bringing some parents on board. I think there's 3 parents that had asked about the book, purchased the book for them, have included them in that process, so that together we can collectively make a good decision and move forward that it's not going to be favorable in everyone's eyes, especially every student, but something that we feel is the best way to move forward. So again, trying to get buy-in as I'm pushing things forward, and I usually have an underlying motive in the back of my head. If I have to make a decisive decision, I certainly will at any time, but if I can get a collective buy-in,
Consider your past accomplishments. What are some of the reasons for your success? How have you overcome the difficulties you may have encountered?
Well, communication. Communication and respect. I have a mutual respect with staff, throughout the district. A thoughtful decision process, not just making a snap decision on something, thinking it through, weighing everything out in my mind, laying things out, looking at data. Having difficult conversations, right? In a leadership role, you're going to have difficult conversations. They're going to happen. They do happen. But having that respect for others, I have found that when I can have even a difficult conversation with a staff member, they have that mutual respect back from me because they appreciate the way that it was handled and I helped them out on a situation or dealt with it in the way that we needed to. One thing that I've been pushing for years, I know we're public schools, but it's customer service. Customer service, customer service. And remembering, we've always got to think what we're doing to put the students first. So when you get those upset parents, or somebody's not happy, think about it. Put our smiles on, right? We still may have a decision they're not quite happy with, but we gotta somehow meld that in there some way and make sure that we're delivering that customer service to them.
How do you recruit, retain, develop, and lead a management team? Give us an example of how you've done this in the past.
Well, recruiting, I'm sure you guys have heard and are aware, the resumes don't flow in for especially teaching positions, but any position, whether it be bus drivers or anything, they're not flowing in like they used to. When I was first went into education, there was stacks like this of resumes, and you did whatever you could so that yours would maybe get pulled off the top. And now, I've had positions where I'm lucky if I get a couple people to apply for a teaching position. I recently have gone through a few positions where I've struggled. My foreign language, math, those were a couple of areas I've struggled in recently. And I've utilized the unique opportunity to seek out other individuals that have credentials but don't have a teaching certification, utilize the alternative path. I've worked on, I think there are 5 teachers that over the past 3 years, I have written the grant through the Grow Your Own grant to get them reimbursed for their entire education, all their certification costs, their testing costs. I think it's up to $10,000, so there was one, it covered one of the line items they could use was childcare, so that this individual could do some time with the schooling. So recruiting those individuals that I know are going to be solid people, so far they've all been amazing, great on board, very thankful to the district and myself for providing them that opportunity, and obviously finding a grant to pay for it, which is helpful. Retaining staff, again, I'm going to go back to respect. I build respect daily, and it's genuine. I realize it'll be at a district level. I won't have the opportunity to do some of the things that I do where I'm at, but as I get out to different buildings, it may not be daily, but it will happen. Every single morning, you can ask my staff. I get kids going, I'm out there with them, bells ring, I'm gonna come around, I pop my head in every room, and I say good morning. It's just the way I am. I have an open door policy. They know they can come to me with anything. People have often told me I work, sleep, think all I do is think work. That's probably true. And I tell people, I know you're busy during the day. I tell my teachers, I know you don't want to work at night. If you got something bothering you, text me, call me. I'll drop what I'm doing to talk to them. And they know that. And I've retained a lot of teachers. I have one teacher right now. He actually, if you saw, he wrote one of my letters of recommendation. He's been able to retire for the last 2 years, and he has told me repeatedly, the only reason I'm not retiring is because you are the administrator here. I know that because of the feedback I get from my staff. I feel confident with that. And it's something I would want to continue building anywhere I
Tell us what your role as superintendent is in the budget development process and how you've been involved in your past roles.
So that is another hat that I have collaboratively worn with my superintendent. If you're not familiar with Wesley, it's very similar to Ovid-Elsie. A little bit smaller, met with declining enrollment recently. So grants have been a portion of my job. I've worked very collaboratively with my superintendent and business manager on several of the grants. Through the Jones Mars system, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Nexus system where state age and grants are going to come through. Myself and the business manager are the two district identified level 5 authorized users, so that I'm familiar with getting into Nexus, following up with grants, follow-up 23G grant, which I know you guys work on through your MyCamp in your extended school year. Some of those other things are ones that I've taken responsibility for. The budget process, I recognize, is never done. That's something that we start early looking forward to, but it's something that's going to continuously be looked at. One of the things I've been a part of is working to find creative ways. Yes, sometimes we have to find areas we can make budget cuts that don't impact student education, students in the classroom, but there are other ways that we can find ways to reallocate funds. That's something I work to try to do, to see if we can reallocate. Sometimes you can shift some of the general fund to at-risk dollars or other grants that could be explored. Those are some things that can be done. Obviously, like I just said, the budget process is never done. Count days, you're going to make adjustments. Next count day comes, you're going to make adjustments. You've got adjustments in staffing, had kids move in, whatever it may be. One thing within Leslie that I've worked on is increasing our fund balance. We were back in 2019-20, not very proud of it, but we were at a 3.6% fund balance. Obviously, jaw dropping. We are right now sitting at 22%, working still to make that a healthy fund balance. I know we'll get that a little bit up, but that's where we're trying to slim some things off. So to answer your question, I've been very actively involved in the budget for years and within our systems.
Tell us how your previous professional experiences have influenced you as a leader.
I think that it has truly influenced me as a leader. One thing I will never do is forget where I started, and that is in the classroom. I think every day what it means to take someone else's position into that position. For 6 months, I didn't have a lunch lady, and it didn't matter what happened, but I was the one out there washing tables. The lunch ladies were upside down. No, I'm not afraid to step in and do that. I don't forget where I came from. I understand the needs of each building. Each building is unique within their makeup of students, the student needs, and quite frankly, staff. Not in a bad way, it's just that's what they're immersed with. And you find some differences within each one, uniqueness within them. I understand those. I feel I would be strong at this. I think by example, and I really truly feel that having the experience in all levels is an extremely powerful tool in my background.
Okay, please tell us about a time when you have evaluated and adjusted your communication style to ensure stakeholders feel well-informed and engaged.
So, part of our strategic planning process that we went through, and I'm not sure, this is neither here nor there, I know you guys have gone through a similar strategic planning process. One of ours was communication, something that we had noted from surveys from parents, and one of the things that I focused on was how are parents getting their message? We were not utilizing through our school messaging system text messages. It was purely email or mail going out. We opened up that opportunity for text messaging. That was one thing that was a big push in implementation from myself. And I found that at high school, parent-teacher conference times, or attendance rose, other events that we were reminding parents to come to, when we could send a quick text, which I put out there to them, got more engagement. The other one was the social media. Facebook was the one that we were utilizing the most, and I don't want to use the, I don't know if quote is the right word, but we set goals for each building and for the district for a number of posts per week. Do we always hit it? No, but it's something we look at. Last year, at the end of the year, I pulled metrics for all of the buildings in the district and found that we had rose, I think our presence on the social media platform had rose, I want to say like 73% across all 3 buildings in the district. Just from that constant reminder of that push. So I think those are just some unique ways to move past the emails. I think we live in an age where everyone doesn't always read lengthy messages from us. So when we can get something succinct, it can be helpful then. Now, it doesn't totally replace everything else. It's just another avenue to reach.
Please share an example of a time you've led a sustained multi-year improvement initiative. Be specific regarding the situation, the task at hand, and your specific role in the outcome.
So I would say that was a few years back, I want to say several now, that might date myself, when I was the multi-tier system of support, the MTSS district-wide coordinator. We didn't have any processes in place for that. So finding a universal screener, I think you guys use NWA now, not something I was able to before. Fabulous universal screener. Got a universal screener so that we could identify students, put processes in place so that we could identify students, get interventions. It also was a process of vetting out interventions that worked, interventions that were research-based, interventions that could be taught within a classroom setting under a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3 support, and implementing those within each building. Each building looks a little different when you implement interventions. If you're not super familiar with that in an elementary building, you can easier have an easier time implementing your interventions, right? They've got in the classroom, they can do some center-based activities, pull some kids over. Middle school, you've still got a little bit that might work, and as you get into high school, you have to get a little more creative as to how your teachers are familiar doing that, because they're not used to working with the littles in other ways. Our scores weren't great at that time. Through several years of using universal screeners, having a process, we were able to increase our scores. They weren't blowing through the roof, but they were on an incline upwards, which was a positive in my book. And there were systems in place. Like I said, once I locked that position, which was only because it was a grant-funded position and the grant funding had run out, I had put the processes in place that it could sustain itself. We continue to run it today. As the curriculum director, I still explore other interventions we can get, but we have data-days established, we have our universal screeners. They know what to do with them, they know how to identify kids for them, they know how to get the kids through the interventions, they know when the intervention's not working, when we need to maybe make some referrals for some other areas there. I would say that would be my greatest multi-year success.
Please tell us about your experience with labor negotiation and human resource management.
In negotiating contracts, yes, I have negotiated multiple teacher and support staff contracts. If you were to ask my superintendent, he would tell you that every time he asks me to walk in the door and be the chief negotiator, I like to do the background stuff behind and help him as we finagle our way into what we're going to do and work through. But we work together on that. It's a collaborative process though when we sit down at the table. When we negotiate, we try our best, and that's my philosophy. If we can collaborate on this, what are the problems? How can we work to solve them? There's always going to be small problems. Financials are always going to come up. It's my responsibility on the district side or an admin side to make sure that we are financially responsible and fiscally responsible as we're moving forward with that there. That's a key importance, but also recognizing great things that are happening within the district. So those are usually things that are going to be coming up within those. So I do have quite a bit of experience in negotiations. Human resources, I will tell you that is not in my hat box. However, I have been in a district, we don't have human resources, which means every administrator takes a slightly different role in helping through that process. So, through the hiring process, through the staff that we have, I'm familiar with the FMLA, when things need to get done, when there are incident reports, what processes we have to follow, any of the procedures that need to go through there. But no, I don't have a hat in HR, but I'm willing and I definitely will figure anything out that needs to be figured out.
Please describe how you have engaged and supported staff members in a way that is meaningful to them. How did you know they felt supported?
So with staff, one of the things that you first, at least I feel I first need to do is identify their needs. Everybody's a little bit different. I look at staff, I'm sorry, take a look back here at the question real quick, sorry. Everyone's a little different. I know some of my teachers I can send a quick email out to, and that's fine. I know others, I can send an email out, but I need to stop by and have just a quick conversation with them. And I know there's some that just need that heads up before that email even comes out. Gotta recognize that. That's part of the way that I work with them. I send out on a monthly basis a staff SEL survey. It's anonymous, they can put their names in there. It's a great way for myself to get feedback. Occasionally there's some things that I bring up in staff meeting, I'm like, guys, you're right, I need to work on this, or we need to work on this. I'm glad you're sharing things with me, I don't know where it came from. That's a helpful thing. Looking at progression or professional growth opportunities, whether it's through our professional development or other opportunities. I try to envision a lot of collaborative learning opportunities. We do teacher learning walks. We do a popcorn teacher. That was one thing that I brought 2 years ago with the district. We have a couple times a year, and we get volunteers from all three buildings, the high school, middle school, and elementary, and we swap. They set up a time that works. They set up a time frame. It doesn't have to be the whole day. High school teacher goes down and they work in the shoes of an elementary teacher for a couple hours, and they come back and they're like, wow, I thought my job was hard. So elementary teachers will come up and they're like, wow, I don't want to be around those big kids. Like, that was enough for me. So it's an eye-opener, but it's a reality check for what we have going on there. The other thing, looking at lesson studies where teachers collaboratively work to create a lesson plan. They will work collaboratively, they'll teach it and do a shared opportunity for teaching it, and then they do a reflection on it. So those are some of the things that we do to engage. Again, I'm going to go back to open door policy. They can come to me at any time. And I think, and I would welcome you to, if you were to call up or walk in and ask any single one of the staff members in my current building or our previous building, they would tell you. They can reach me at any time. And if they need something, it doesn't matter what it is, student issue, curriculum issue, doesn't matter, it's gonna get done.
Please tell us about a time when your performance did not meet your expectations and what you learned from that. How will you apply those lessons?
So I thought about this one, and yes, there are always times, right, it's not always perfect. There's always times I wish things could be better. But the one thing that came to mind when I took a look at that question, and this was a couple years ago, don't want to bring up the word COVID, but this is as we were in that part there. We were considering at the beginning of the school year pushing the start back a little bit. We never closed our doors, pushing it back, and I can't even recall the reason why. We were in a board meeting. Board openly, they typically will talk to the superintendent or myself, and they had asked a question to myself. I learned that day that word choice is extremely valuable. I had said it really didn't matter. You could keep the start date where it was, you could push it back. Those that will be ready, they're gonna be ready. Those that procrastinate, they're gonna wait until the last day. They'll be ready that last day, but they're gonna wait. Word got back to teachers that I said the word procrastinating, that I called them procrastinators. Not what I said at all. But the high school staff, teachers, and I was not the high school principal at the time, had heard that. And, you know, I had not realized the choice of words and what that had meant to them. I didn't even know at that time I was going to go be the high school principal. When I found out that that had happened, took a little, you know, at first I'll own up, like I'll own it, that's what I said. I didn't realize that's how that came out. Had to do some reflection on that, make sure that now I know words definitely do matter. Bought donuts, had a nice handwritten card, went up there, was in the teacher's lounge during the lunches, like face to face, apologized to them, because if I make a mistake, I'm gonna tell you, and I'll apologize and I'll move forward. I don't know that any of us are perfect. When I moved up to the high school, I was kind of leery of that, and high school teachers all said to me, it made a difference because you acknowledged that was not, we didn't take it the right way, and that you had said something that maybe the words could have come out a little differently. Regardless, you came up here and you met with us. You didn't just hide behind the door on that one and let it keep going. I think that was a big moment for me. I mean, you can look at data. Data comes out on, I don't care if there's growth every year. I'm never happy with where data is at. I always want better. I always want more. So that's just another example. But I would say that the other one is probably one that will stick with me for a very long time.
Please tell us about a challenge you've experienced in bringing a group with varying perspectives to consensus on a difficult issue. How did you lead, communicate, and what was the final outcome?
So throughout the years, and I'm currently even in the process of it, I have led curriculum adoption. Math and ELA, the English we've done a couple times. Science and social studies, I guess we've done those each. And whenever we go to adopt new curriculum, and I bring in some of the options that we have, immediately there are going to be, you know, roadblocks put up left and right. Everyone has their opinion, everyone has their idea why this isn't going to work, or this isn't going to work, or this is my favorite, but no one else likes that there. One of the things I do, I bring down those materials to them, and I listen. I need to validate what they're thinking. They've got a reason why that curriculum is not setting off a green light for them. I listen to their issues. I will take them, I will categorize them. I will bring them together during our meetings that we'll have to go through the curriculum as we vet it through there. I'll categorize what all the issues are that I heard. They don't need to know who they came from, where they came from, what grade level. Let's look at all the issues that are there. I'll bring in that research-based evidence. I'll bring in the facts, and I'll show them what each material for each curriculum unit or box or whatever material the company will have for us. And slowly but surely, I start to see them each time come around to a consensus. Organize school visits, I'll find other schools that are utilizing that curriculum. We'll go visit, we'll see things in action, they'll have these ahas, they'll come around to it. And I put things together. But I realize that you can't rush through something, right? You've got to give that time. You've got to give them some time to explore things. Like I said, I think K-8, I've gone through 2 different curriculums, both ELA and math. And it's a tough one, right? You're dealing with a lot of different, as you're trying to get something systemic that's going to build up, a lot of different views between the elementary and school, and even from upper elementary to lower elementary as to what is best, and the teaching philosophy and methods within a specific curriculum. So you got to really explore those ideas, bring them together. I have found that each time, I mean, I have 100% consensus, but when we get right down to it, yeah, this wasn't my top one, but it was my number two, and I had a lot of positives within it, and I can see why. I have not ever had anyone adamantly throw it down that's not there, because if they did that, I don't think the instruction within the classroom would go anywhere where we want it to be. We've got to get them on board with it. I think that would be one of my biggest accomplishments, is bringing them together each time.
All right, so as we wind down our time together today, would you like to ask us any questions or leave us with any closing remarks?
I would. I actually have two questions for you guys. The first one is, what do you see as the district's most critical priorities for the next 3 years?
You want each of us?
No, I'm fine with an answer, so.
I think as a board, we consciously made a decision to postpone our next strategic plan, waiting for a new superintendent to take their seat first so they could be part of it as well. So I think that's a priority for us moving forward.
Excellent. My other question, did you want to respond, because I didn't mean to cut you.
Oh, savers, no, we were on the same page.
Okay. My other question was, what are some, or at least a key initiative that the district is currently excited about?
Well, right now, they're really excited about the new reading curriculum and the results that they're seeing, because we just implemented it K-5. So we're looking at how that data is rolling out and how they're more specific and intentionally doing interventions. So that's been something we just got to hear about at our last board meeting this week, and where they're seeing the progress there.
Do you know what they're using?
Bookworks. No,
Okay.
am I right here? Okay.
Bookworks, okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Excellent. Those are my only two questions I have for you. I think that, just in closing, I can tell you that I'm passionate. I am ready to take a district and lead a district. I am not a me, I'm a we. We work together. I'm ready to do things and move things forward as a team, things that you as a board want to see, as staff want. I'm ready to take that next step. And I feel very solid in all of my experience that I have, that I can do that very successfully for you.
Well, we appreciate your interest in our superintendent position. We're interviewing a number of candidates tonight and tomorrow, so we'll contact you if you're selected as a finalist. We enjoyed meeting with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I'm sorry, now I'm just, one more. This is, as I put this away. I know you mentioned that the strategic plan is something that you're looking forward to with the next superintendent, and if you do get a chance within my entry plan, I did take a look at your strategic plan, which I modeled my entry plan around. I know that I think the last time I saw was 2016. I'm not quite sure. That is a process I worked through with MASC. We created one, and that is something I would like to, as you'll see, once you get to phase 4 and then that was where it's all leading to start that push by mid-year after seeing how things are here.
Well, thank you for bringing that for us.
Yes, thank you for your time this evening. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you.
We're going to take another 10-minute recess.
Oh, yes, we're planning on 8 o'clock, 30 minutes.
Okay.
And
Thank you so much.
feedback forms, I'll pick them up if you have them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You said you were back to your grandmother was an open or something. Great grandma, what was her name? Because I'm a physician, I took care of older nursing homes for 28 years. So, yeah. Okay, okay. Before that.
before that, yes. But yeah, it must be, it's still there, and I was like, yeah.
It's still there, they added on.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you passing on this?
Can you read these?
They got that thing.
Well, I didn't know, once you looked at it, and it had some kind of a, something in it, you said, any
Oh,
else?
except you have, if they have the little. We can't get horns, the little horns.
What is
Same
it?
thing.
Yes.
It's not good
Yes,
for you, right?
it's not good for me.
So,
Puts my heart in it.
I don't wanna give that to you. It's like Doc once told me if I ever, he said, if I ever needed, mouth to mouth. He said, you'll never know if I helped you. Something like that. It won't take long, it'll tighten up. Did you hear?
Is that who I am? Just was it? I don't know, just. No. From Madeline. I don't know. Says I don't have the considered a blessing. So, weird. She's some of our teachers. Leslie's not too far. Either side. It's a half. I worry because I watch was it that Why does the other one break? Because it wanted the line. Do we know why they're from us? I was like, okay. Because I think there's no gun. Could be able to. That's what now. Down here. I mean, it'd be an hour drive because of the highway is terrible right now. And even up 52. Between 69 and 127, it's gonna be a mess. Well, I would think, because all your truck carried through there. No. I'm like, wait, what? Yes. We truck to Indiana a lot for grain. We truck a lot. Like 800,000. Don't go picking on me. Manure tankers? Yeah, that's what they are. Don't worry, in the May, it'll be shopping trucks. Where's the new roof? Behind the big farm or the one in Elsie? Okay. And that's to you. South and west of So I'm like, I was thinking I should get high active, which is fine. They must be happy. They're not getting any more shots. It was very interesting. Yeah. So I'm in this weird, but they have, I mean, their father He bought Fred Heinz's. Yep. So, now we get all of that too.
Usually you can agree, but not today.
Oh, oh my God. That'd be Did he just spread it or did he inject it?
Yeah, spread it or something.
Okay, was I supposed to give this before Mark took this from me before the next candidate? Do you want me to make that
Sure, that would be fantastic. Is that what she's doing, is making a copy for each of us?
Yes. Anybody who does it, that's what we did.
Okay, I keep trying to push the share.
That's what I said to him, I was like, this is yours.
Okay,
Hey, better you're
I didn't know they had Skittles. Skittles. You want one, Wayne? Yeah, these are portions. Oh, okay. Sorry, Wayne. Got word that it was next. My wife's calls. What's that? I didn't have all 5 prostates. I had to check it as well.
That's as close as I can get. Don't talk yourself sick. I'll be in trouble.
We have our last interview for this evening, Mr. Jay Leonard, currently at Madawan Casale.
Very nice to meet you.
Mary?
Mary Jane. Very nice to meet you.
Hi, well, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. We're going to each take turns asking you questions. I'm going to go first. We've had the opportunity to review your resume. Please tell us how your background and experience make you a good fit to be our next superintendent. How will you demonstrate that the success of students is a priority?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Just want to start, just a little bit about my background, digging in. I did start off as a classroom teacher, a middle school teacher for a number of years. I've served as middle school assistant principal, athletic director, high school assistant principal. I even had to fill in for our athletic director at a high school, Traverse City Central, for a short period of time when we were kind of in a transition period. Later had the opportunity to go to Lakewood, become the high school principal, and then stepped into an assistant superintendent role. And I've been in that position ever since. And I reiterate that and kind of share that because all of those experiences have really given me just a lot of opportunities to understand all the different aspects that go on in a school system. And I think when you come to a school district, it's good to be able to have an understanding about the nuances. And forgot that we had a period in Lakewood where I had to step in and be the transportation director for a very short period of time. So it's just one of the things that you have to do sometimes, and step into roles and build upon those experiences. And I think those types of things are what are really going to benefit my stepping into a potential role here at Ovid-Elsie as a superintendent. You asked about how are you going to see that student success is a priority. And one of the first things, it all comes back to the actions that you're going to see me demonstrating each and every day. It's going to start with engagement. One of the things that I enjoy doing is engaging with kids. I get out into buildings, I'm in classrooms. I want to find out from students what it is that they feel they need in their school system in order to be successful. And so that is important to me. Engaging with staff members, engaging with community members, and finding out what are the things that staff need in order to best facilitate their classrooms, to transport students, to serve food every single day, all of those components, and really just working with staff to make sure that we're providing the very, very best. And then with that comes collaboration, engaging people first, finding out what the needs are, and then collaborating around, the problems that we need to solve. And having the conversations with all of those stakeholders and ultimately leading to, what actions are we going to put into play that are going to show that we're putting kids at the very forefront. And that's what we want to see with everything that we do. And so, it's one thing to say we're going to do something, it's another to actually begin the actions and moving forward to make sure that it's coming to fruition.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will be asked by our Vice President, Susan Campbell.
Okay, what practices and procedures do you use to develop trust and confidence with your board and keep them informed?
So I always think, very similar to how I operate with my administrative team. Trust is built with teaspoons. It can be lost in buckets, right? Built teaspoons, lost in buckets. One of the things, is how I interact with my administrative team when I first get to know them is I want to have one-on-one meetings, really to just understand and have a grasp of who they are as individuals. That would be one of the things that I would be doing within that first 30 days is having one-on-one meetings with every single board member. Just, what is it that motivates you? What is the reason why you're on the board? It's important for me to know that. Kind of what is your why? Similarly, knowing what my why is. Why I want to do this profession? And why am I engaged in this role? And so just beginning those foundational pieces, and then in the first 90 days, it's definitely going to be, weekly phone calls, just checking in, seeing how are things going. And the reason for that is because I want to know that you feel feel like you're informed about what's happening in the school district, that I'm meeting your expectation. With 7 board members, there's obviously different, ways in which people like to receive communication. There's always going to be a Friday update that's going to come out, that it will give you kind of all the ins and outs of what's been happening in the school district, the rationales as to why we're making certain decisions, and again, just keeping you informed. Ultimately, it's just those ultimate touch points, those constant touch points of finding out and providing you with information, because the more that you can see that you're seeing transparency, that you're seeing rationale for decisions, and that there's regular ongoing communication, it's going to be critical to developing the relationship with each and all of you. It's the same process I use with my administrative team, in my previous districts. I have 16 administrators that I work with directly that are, inside the school buildings each and every single day. And, it's important to make sure that I'm there and developing that relationship and communicating with each and every one of them.
How will you introduce yourself to the Ovid-Elsie community and maintain engagement with these stakeholders?
So that is one of the things that I'm really most excited about, is the opportunity to be in a school district where the community and the school really are in synergy with one another. It's one of the things that I enjoyed greatly about my time in Lakewood, because, even in that district, the school district was what we would call as the heartbeat of the community. And so developing that bond is really, really important. One of the first things I would do is I would start with doing, village visits. When I was in Lakewood, granted, it was a very challenging time in that school district, and there was a little erosion of trust with the previous administration. When some new administration were coming in, we had some work to do. And so getting out into the community, I went to 4 village visits. There's 4 villages within that community, and basically did like a town hall meeting. And that would be very similar to how I'd want to start, getting myself out into the community to be able to start developing some of those relationships. Connections with the chamber, local chamber, and having discussions with local business leaders. What are the things that local business leaders would like to see from the school system, from the school district, from an educational setting, within the classroom? What are the types of things that they're looking for? So those are some of those first steps. When I think about community, I also think about our staff, right? So we're talking about our school community. And developing those relationships right out the get-go is important. It's hard to ask people to come in over the summer to start those, but really getting out and communicating, getting an introductory letter, out to staff. One of the things that I did when I went to Madawan, granted it was a very challenging time because it was right in the middle of COVID, is I held virtual meetings with every single department and every single grade level in the entire district. And that's right around 250 staff members, all right, as well in the school buildings, as well as food service teams, transportation. Just because there's a lot of uncertainty about what was going on, we needed to be able to build that relationship in a very short period of time in order to kind of bring that team together. And so those are things that I'm going to want to do immediately. In a virtual world, it's very easy to do that, but I always have an open door policy. I want people to come in and be engaged right from the get-go. Meeting with our union leadership is going to be important within that first 30 to 60 days. It's going to be on my 90-day plan. We're making those connections and starting to develop those relationships. And then obviously, when there's opportunities in the community, just local events, being present, being able to introduce myself. An example, there was a 4th of July parade the year I got hired as the high school principal in Lakewood, and I was right there with my family and participating and walking in the parade and meeting people. And those are the types of things that are important in these types of roles, so that we can start making those connections right from the start.
Sometimes we are in situations where our role is less about being the one to come up with the creative ideas and more about facilitating the creative process or helping others get their ideas implemented. describe a time when you played this type of role. What did you do to facilitate the process, and what were the results?
Yeah, so in 2 different districts, Lakewood and Madawan, I've had the opportunity to help facilitate our strategic planning process. And that is a large task. It requires a lot of stakeholders. We have community members, we have staff, we had some students, all involved in those processes. And a lot of times when those strategic plans are built, many of the goals are, these large overarching, goals, recruitment and retainment. It might be around staff wellness. It might be around providing students with a 21st century rigorous curriculum. And so, one of the things that we have to do, one, to facilitate the process, to develop the goals that we want to achieve as a district. But then 2 is, once we're tasked and that plan is completed, is how are we actually going around and implementing specific action items to achieve those goals? Part of my role is that I oversee our district school improvement team. It's made up of teachers, it's made up of paraprofessionals, food service, technology, transportation, everybody across the district, representatives, to talk about what are the things that we are going to put into place in the actionable steps in order to achieve those goals. A good example, one of our goals is around provide all students with a diverse, rigorous 21st century curriculum. And one of the action items that came out of it was we want to develop a STEM committee. And, that was one of the first steps. And that came from our district school improvement team. And then I had the opportunity to start empowering other individuals to lead that work. And now, since that's been done, they've developed a 5-year STEM implementation plan that we're just getting started building that into. Another example is that we wanted to work on recruitment and retainment, as well as develop some structures and procedures to support staff wellness. And one of the things that came out of it, is the launching of Capturing Kids' Hearts in our district. We're a big Capturing Kids' Hearts district now. We felt as though we needed to work on, developing relationships and strengthening relationships not only with our kids, but also developing a culture within our school system that we all stood behind and we felt was going to provide the best educational environment for all of our students. And so some of our other staff, kind of took that and started running with it. And so it's really about, helping to inspire people to put their ideas out on the table and then empowering them to start taking actionable steps to make them happen.
Considering your past accomplishments, what are some of the reasons for your success? How have you overcome the difficulties you may have encountered?
Yeah, so I think, any accomplishments, I attribute all of that to the success of the team that's been involved. I've been very fortunate to have great team members in every district I've ever been in. And, that's when you know that you can be successful because you pull in people that can bring ideas to the table and help support and address, any of the challenges that you may be facing. So, kind of to answer the how do you handle those, well, that's the great thing about having a team is that you don't have to figure everything out on your own, and you can lean on people to say, I don't have an answer for this. This is a challenge, this is a barrier. We need to stay the course, with the direction that we're going, but, I need some ideas about what we can do to overcome. And so, some of our successes, I think one of our biggest successes, in districts is 2 strategic plans. Recently we passed a $110 million bond. That was a huge success and win for our community and our school system. And I would also, talk a little bit about, we've developed a very comprehensive structure for how we provide professional development and how we collaborate. We are a true PLC district, and that took time to get everybody on board and moving in that direction to really embrace the concept of a true professional learning community. As well as with Capturing Kids' Hearts, as for those that have been through Capturing Kids' Hearts, they understand, but some, it is a, process that, you really have to value. And our team, our district, they're built, our foundation is around relationships. And that is a core, construct of how we operate. And, the importance of building relationships and having common language about how we go about doing that was critical and important to our team. And so regardless of any challenges that may have come our way, I think because we built trust within our team and people feel valued in providing input at the table, whenever barriers or challenges came along, everyone was more than willing to step forward and address them collectively.
How do you recruit, retain, develop, and lead a management team? Give us an example of how you've done this in the past.
Okay. Well, if you retain, you hope you don't have to recruit, right? So, I start, all of our, when I think about recruitment and retainment, actually recently surveyed our entire staff about, what are the things that have the greatest impact on staff wellness that a district can put in place. And it was positive culture within your work environment, competitive compensation and benefits, adequate resources and supports. Seems pretty simple, when you think about those things. But it all starts with the culture that's being established within the school district or within the school building. And so we place a high emphasis on that. If people enjoy coming to work each and every day, then they're going to stay in many cases. And so establishing that positive culture is important. One of the ways in which we recruit people to our district is that, one, we do what we say we're going to do, and we go out and we model providing a positive culture, and then we market it. We show our community through social media, how engaged our administrators are. We show about the great things that are happening and how happy our kids are in our school district and in our building. We have gotten lots of positive feedback, within our county, the greater Kalamazoo area, just from things like that. People asking the question, what's going on in Mattawan? And that right there is a recruitment tool. And we know by getting out and promoting our district each and every day and celebrating what's going on, that the best marketing tool that you can have is word of mouth. And so the more that we can promote that, the better it's going to be. As far as developing, I referenced Capturing Kids' Hearts. One of the things I think is extremely important when leading a management team, my leadership team, I told you I had 16 people. That means we have a lot of voices, a lot of people that want to be involved in discussions. And so it starts with developing a social contract. We create a document that says this is how we're going to operate as a leadership team. Probably very similar to board governance norms. And so, our social contract is collectively written. We make the decision so that it's not one way in which Jay is going to lead the team, it's how are we going to lead collectively. And then we participate in something called Leadership Blueprint. It's really a structure for our team to identify what are our strengths and what are our constraints. I didn't say weaknesses, that's important. Constraints. What are the things that maybe hold us back from growing? And so we have conversations at every administrative team meeting about how have we worked on our constraints. And we have accountability partners. And so it's not just me helping to develop, we want our team to develop each other collectively, because we all have collective ownership in the success of each and every individual within that team. And so those are just some of the ways in which we've done that in the past. And it's great because then everyone gets excited about seeing their teammate become successful.
Tell us what your role as superintendent is in the budget and development process, and how have you been involved in your past roles?
Yeah, so obviously, one of the main roles of the board is to approve a budget. And so as a superintendent, it is my responsibility to make sure that you're fully informed of every nuance that's going on within the budget, where revenues are coming from, obviously how our expenditures are being placed throughout the budget. I always like to say that, how you spend your money says a lot about what you value, right? So where you place money within your budget, it is somewhat of an indicator. And so we want to be able to have those conversations, and I want to be able to communicate all of that information to each of you that, here's how we're utilizing dollars within our budget, and here's the reason why. Here's how it's going to benefit students, and this is why, this is best for our kids. As far as my current role, one of the things that I specifically oversee is I oversee all grant funding. With all, obviously there's a lot of details, there's a lot of documentation that goes into that. It's directly related into the school building, so I need to have a lot of collaboration with all of my administrators to talk about what are the specific needs, how we're going to be utilizing these dollars, so that I can go back to our CFO and lay out the plan about how we're planning on utilizing those specific funds. As far as other roles, one of the things that I play a very tight role in is working with administrators on doing their budgeting for the coming year. We operate off a zero-based budget model, and so I meet with every single director and administrator to have the conversation about, okay, what are the needs? We're looking at enrollment. We're talking about any sort of resource needs, and so really just working with them so then I can go back to the CFO and have the conversation around, all right, here's what we're looking at. These are the things that we need to make sure are absolutely in the budget. They're absolute needs, and then here's some of the wants. And then we start looking at how do we prioritize some of those items. So that's the current role that I play within MAT1.
All right, tell us how your previous professional experiences have influenced you as a leader.
Yeah, so I mentioned that I was an assistant principal, and that was up in Traverse City, so on the resume. I think there were three things that really stand out to me. Just kind of thinking about my career path. The first is to be credible. And really, when I was in Traverse City, that is a district that spends a lot of focus, energy on research-based instructional practices. And so it was really important when I started surrounding myself with people and just understanding, how important it was to be credible and knowledgeable about, specific areas. And so, I knew that I needed to make sure that I was doing that, and that I had a foundational knowledge because that was the expectation within that district. And that was really important for me. It kind of set the stage for, any time that we're looking to implement an initiative, you want to be credible and be knowledgeable about what it is that you're trying to implement. The second thing is the importance of trust. And I mentioned, when I went to Lakewood, they were going through a very, very difficult time with a personnel issue. And not to mention that, then they also had to close 2 elementary schools. Right when I was getting there, that was the start of my time in the district. And there was a clear loss of trust between the community and the school district, as well as even from the staff in some regards with administration. And so there was a lot of focus on the repair that needed to happen between the district and administration. And so, really understanding that and valuing, this is why making sure transparency and communication is critical and helps develop a trusting relationship between the school and community. And then the last is, empowerment. When I went to Madawan, obviously that is a large school district. It's almost 500 employees. I told you, there's about 25 administrators. And so one of the things that I recognized was, obviously when, transitioning into a different type of role, the importance of helping to grow people. And I had a couple of folks in my student services team that really, their roles were more of support types of roles to buildings. And I saw a lot of untapped potential in all three of them. And really just taking the opportunity and seeing what can happen when you empower somebody to grab a hold of something that they're passionate about and putting it into action for the success of the school district and the students was really something that I guess I was able to experience and really see the growth in each one of them. And so really those three things for me have really been a critical foundation for me.
Okay, please tell us about a time when you have evaluated and adjusted your communication style to ensure stakeholders feel well informed and engaged.
Yeah, so you think of, when I got to Mattawan, there was a lot of feedback about our human resources team and our human resources department. And we collected some survey feedback, just really that noted that there was a gap in what I'll say is just customer service. And so, one of the things I set out to do was to go find out, what types of customer service things did you really want to see? And a lot of it was really based around communication and responsiveness. And so, from our HR office. And so, we started adjusting, we started creating quarterly newsletters, we started creating a weekly update that just gave general information, that critical information that staff needed to be aware of. And since then, it's really improved, from a customer service standpoint, because that's our role, as central office HR administrators, is we're here to serve all of our staff here in the district. We want to make sure that they're well taken care of and well communicated with. Another example with our administrative team, really just looking at, the time is a valuable asset, especially for a building principal, and you try to protect that as much as you can. And unfortunately, whenever you schedule a meeting, you look at your agenda and you're like, oh my goodness, we're never going to be able to get through all of this. And so one of the things that I quickly learned was, we have a lot of things that we need to cover, but we just don't have the time, and I want to be protective of people's time because I know there's a million things going on back in the building. And so just a lot of feedback and discussion with that team was to learn about, what are the things that we need to get done in that time together? What are the things that we can communicate up front and after to make sure that we're being efficient with what we need to do? And so, just taking that structure and not just discussing it in the moment, giving them time to process ahead of the meeting, and then being able to have the discussions in the areas that needed discussion during the meeting, and then doing some follow-up after. And then another just example with the community, we were, sending out a lot of communications that probably get these, I don't know, from time to time is where there might be a lot of information in a single communication. And that happens. There's a lot of, especially, there's lots of events that are going on. We got a lot of feedback that, for some of our community members, it was just too overwhelming. There's too many things that were being pushed out in a single, format, and the feedback was, for these big critical things, we wanted to see more of it being pushed in a single format. So we started looking at different avenues in which we can promote specifically school-based events in a different way. We ended up purchasing, if you've ever heard of Peach Jar, it is a program that allows for newsletter communications to be able to be pushed out in a singular format. And we've gotten good feedback from that, because then it's a much more appealing, aesthetically appealing communication versus, a traditional newsletter. People feel, that they're getting better information. Just because it's in a single snapshot. And really in today's society, people want information in a 30-second snippet, right? So, we felt like that was really important to be able to do and, meet our stakeholders and our community where they felt like they need to be met at.
Please share an example of a time you have led a sustained multi-year improvement initiative. Be specific regarding the situation, the task at hand, your specific role, and the outcome.
Well, so probably one of the most common ones for me is my role in the work on the strategic plan. And so, with our district school improvement team, I work very closely with them to work on specific action items that we want to see as a district that are going to help us move closer towards our overarching goals. So that's one example. The other, that I would give is that, this is very common in many districts, is that when I got to Mattawan, the curricular resource replacement hadn't happened for about a decade. And, I know in many districts it happens that, resources become one of the first things when budgets get tight that we're not going to replace. And so, I felt like that was really important because, in my opinion, is when we put resources in teachers' hands that are, up to date, that are research-based, they don't have to think about what they're going to teach or where they're going to find the tools. They only have to think about the how, which is really one of the most important, is how they're going to meet kids and how they're going to help all kids learn. And so when we can provide them with that, it's really important. So one of the things that we started working on is developing a curricular review cycle. And so over the past 5 years, we were able to develop a cycle that has replaced our entire math curriculum, K-12, our social studies, our world language, and recently just replaced our ELA curriculum, K-12, over the past 4 years. So that's been an important piece because, the feedback from our staff has been, in some cases, it's been 10 years, it's been 15, it's been 20 years without any sort of new resources that we can use to support our students.
Please tell us about your experience with labor negotiations and human resource management.
Yeah, so in Mattawan, I'm the chief negotiator for the school district. The superintendent participates, but generally I lead that process. I'm actually currently in negotiations with our teachers union as well as our support staff union. And really, anytime we begin our negotiation process, we start with, as I mentioned earlier, that social contract. It's really important to me, and having the discussion about how are we all going to operate. When we're coming together and we're meeting, and establishing kind of those cultural norms within that group. And I like to work with our EA from a standpoint of interest-based bargaining. Really, what are the goals? What are your top 3 to 5 goals that you have for the next contract? Whenever we're talking about negotiations, and so and then what are the goals of the district? So that's important as well. So that we all understand. These are the things that we're setting out to achieve. Here's where we feel like from a district we need to be. And we want to hear where our associations feel like they need to be. The things that they're really thinking about for their membership. And I think that's really important. When we put that out on the table, it's extremely helpful. As far as HR, I oversee our entire HR department in Mattawan. We have an HR coordinator who does a lot of behind the scenes work, and obviously our CFO is involved in that as well as some of our other folks in our business office. But really my role is to do a lot of the hiring. That's one of the things that I really enjoy. I actually meet with every single employee that comes through the district. I think that that's important because too many times, new staff don't have the opportunity to interact with, the superintendent or the assistant superintendent, and I want to know who every single person is that's coming through in our buildings each and every single day. And so, that's always fun. It's great to get to know, all the people that are coming to work with the kids in the district. And so, yeah, really, we work together very, very collaboratively on, making sure that, the communication regarding HR expectations, changes to laws, things of that nature, that everybody's up to date on those types of things, throughout the year.
Please describe how you have engaged and supported staff members in a way that is meaningful to them. How did you know they felt supported?
Yeah, so, I think a couple of examples, during COVID, that was important, that was big, because, there was, again, a lot of uncertainty, so involving people in a lot of the decision-making and providing input. My role during that time was to identify how are we going to facilitate instruction, what's that going to look like, when it's in person, when it's out virtual. And so making sure that people had input in that process, because it was unique for everybody, from kindergarten to 12th grade. And so, just making sure that people had an opportunity to have some input at the table so that we could have some dialogue and figure out what it was that we were going to do. And then, just checking in on people. I mean, that was a tumultuous time. And so it was important to make sure that, visibility and being around and connecting with people. And that was something that I do frequently, whether COVID or not, because, the challenges of the classroom, it is a tall task. It is one of the most challenging professions in the world. And so making sure people know that you're connecting and that you're staying connected to the classroom is important. So how do I know? It's more of just the side conversations that I get to have with people from time to time, just extending their appreciation. Probably one of the biggest examples recently, we recently passed and had our ELA, our kindergarten through 5th grade ELA curriculum approved. And it was a long process. We probably had 20 teachers come to the board meeting and to celebrate the work that was done over that time. And that, to me, said that they felt like they were part of that whole process and really invested in the work that was done. And so I had the opportunity to circle back to each and every one of them and just thank them for being at the board meeting, that it meant a lot to the board and to all the work that had been completed. And they just said, we just wanted to see it through. So it was very exciting.
Please tell us about a time when your performance did not meet your expectations. What did you learn from that, and how did you apply that lesson?
Yeah, so, one of I think during some of the DSIT meetings, I have goals that I'm hoping that we can achieve during the meeting, and there's a lot of discussion. And so I think one of the things is, when I found that I wasn't getting to some of the outcomes that I was hoping that we'd be able to get to, to be able to, have clear understanding about what were the next steps of work, right? And because it's a process, and, from a strategic planning standpoint, sometimes staff don't live in that world, they're not thinking about all these nuances. So, really it was, just having to circle back and remind myself, all right, what are the high quality instructional practices that I need to be modeling for my staff, in order to get those outcomes that I'm looking for. And it's just going back and, reminding myself, yep, when I'm preparing for these, I'm preparing a lesson plan, and I need to make sure that, I'm developing a backwards design with the idea of what do I want to achieve at the end of all of this, and making sure that I've got the correct steps in place so that I get there. Because I don't want people coming to those meetings feeling like it was a waste of time. And when you walk out and you don't feel like you've accomplished anything, that feeling can start to perpetuate. And it's important to say, okay, well, then we got to make sure that when we're leaving, everyone's leaving with clarity and a sense of, completion of the purpose.
Please tell us about a challenge you've experienced in bringing a group with varying perspectives to consensus on a difficult issue. How did you lead and communicate, and what was the final outcome?
Yeah, so recently I mentioned the ELA adoption, and I think that this very much pertains. And so we actually just had it approved in January, but we started this process 18 months ago. And it was meant to be completed over the course of the year. So in the 23-24 year, we really started having the conversation about, all right, where are we going with our ELA resources? We were a Lucy Calkins district. Obviously, there's a lot of research about Lucy Calkins, and it doesn't line with the science of reading. And so there was a big push to, we need to move to something else. We didn't know what, but we knew that we needed to move. And so we had to develop, a firm understanding about what is it that we feel we need our students to have as far as the best curricular resources that we can put in front of all of our kids. And, you're talking about 60 elementary teachers, and having a conversation and bringing a lot of thoughts and ideas into the room and coming to a consensus. And so we ended up bringing in a lot of vendors and, exploring a lot of different options. We invited all of our teachers to come and have some discussion and give some feedback. In the end of that process, we kind of came out with one specific resource that we wanted to take a look at and pilot, and we did. And as we went through the pilot, we had a lot of differing opinions, various reasons as to why people liked it, people didn't like it, different grade levels. And so I could sense from my curriculum director that I'm feeling like we're not in a place where we're going to be able to make a recommendation to the board at this time. And so I would make the decision in April, May, that, hey, we are not going to make a recommendation at this point. This current resource is not off the table, but we're going to continue, and we're going to wait for the fall where we're going to pilot 2 other resources that we had received feedback on. In doing so, we came back in the fall, people kept moving along. We piloted both of the other resources that we wanted to explore that were on our original list. Feedback came back, both of those resources really didn't meet the need of our students. And it happened to be that the company of the original pilot program had done some revisions to their curriculum that actually addressed a lot of the needs. And so we brought that back in front of everybody. And in the end, everyone ended up coming back and saying, you know what, this is the right fit for us. So that was a difficult decision because staff was excited about, I had some that were excited about getting a brand new resource at the beginning of the year, and some that were very concerned about us adopting that potential resource. So I had to make a decision based on the information that I had at that time. And ultimately, giving our staff more time to process the information was really the best decision I could have made. And that's what it did, and it got us to a place where now everybody feels very good about what we have coming. And we've got professional development on it coming up in May, and they are ecstatic about it.
All right, well, as we wind our time down together, would you like to ask us any questions or leave us with any closing remarks?
Yeah. Well, so I have one question. It'd be great if everyone had the opportunity to respond. And I guess my question is what is one thing that you want to celebrate at the end of next school year?
A successful first-year superintendent.
That's a good one. That was mine.
That's okay, yeah.
I mean, thinking along the lines of, yes, we are doing the new reading series here, but also all the curricular work across the grade levels, just continuing to see that growth among the teams, but then the continued success throughout the entire district.
I think getting us to a place where Ovid-Elsie is the school where every teacher in mid-Michigan wants to be.
Love that.
Enrollment growth by pulling kids from other school districts, because this is the school of choice that they choose to be at.
I'd say the same thing as Miller said, I think that's the best one.
Well, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate the opportunity, and really look forward to an opportunity to talk with you again.
Well, we appreciate your interest in our superintendent position. So we're interviewing again tomorrow night, and we will contact you if you're selected as a finalist. We really enjoyed meeting with you, and thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Come back there in about 8 minutes, and then wrap up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You good?
frazzled tonight, but tomorrow will be better. And at least I won't have jury duty tomorrow.
Oh, did you have jury duty today? That would be great.
No, I'm supposed to have, I had to call the next 2 weeks. And I called and they said, don't need to show up tomorrow or next week.
I don't know of anyone who said, yay, I have jury duty.
All right, see you guys tomorrow.
See, it's hard after third one. I bet Doris wanted, let's just do 4 one night. It's a long night. Yeah, it's just hard.
All right, ready to come back to session?
Okay, well, made it through the first night. So what I like to do now is we're gonna take a look at each candidate, spend a couple minutes on them, talk about what you like about them, or their strengths, and then we're gonna have time for just what questions do you have about that person that you wanna know more. That helps if we're going to decide to bring anybody back, that'll help develop possibilities for, that you want to question, because the second round interview may be